Our next update is an update on the identity management project, or as we call it, the implementation of Fischer. Joining us are J.B. Dunn and Ed Rhines, and off to you, J.B. and Ed.
Thank you, John. We're back to tell you the latest information on the identity management system. I'm the project manager, J.B. Dunn.
I'm Ed Rhines. I'm the technical lead.
And we're going to give you a little bit of background on what we've been doing and an update on what we'll be doing next. But first, a little bit of a review on what we mean by identity management. Identity management, you'll probably recall, will authenticate that you are who you claim to be when you log on to the university's information systems. But it doesn't authorize people to do anything in particular, does it, Ed?
No, it basically identifies that you are who you are and then passes information about you to the system you're logging into, such as your role within the university. Are you faculty, staff, maybe where you work, med school, whatever. And then it's up to the system to use that information to decide whether or not to let you use that service.
And so what we're going to do is implement a new identity management system, and it'll be done primarily in two phases. There's two significant pieces of work that we need to be delivering. The first is the service providers, the third-party service providers that provide services to the university community. And then the other has to do with the provisioning of the university systems themselves. Ed, can you give us a little bit of background on the difference between those third-party services and the internal systems provisioning?
Okay, the third-party services are handled, it allows systems outside the university to use our user IDs and passwords to allow people to get in. Places like lynda.com or OhioLink, some NIH sites and things like that, all use our credentials here at CASE to allow access to their services. The local provisioning is how we get all those user IDs and passwords. That's where we gather up the information from around the university, from various places like HR and registrar and various schools and things, and combine that all together to come up with a list of who's at the university and what they do here.
Exactly. So let's bring everybody up to date a little bit on the first of those deliverables, the migrating of the service providers. So we've made good progress over this past month. You may recall from our previous broadcasts that we have to first convert the existing environment up to the next current version of the vendor software that we use today for identity management for those third-party service providers. Well, that work is nearly completed. About 98% of all the service providers have already been converted to the new level that they need to be operating at. We're also at the point now where we're able to begin testing the Identity Provider Database, the IDP, if you will. That is the new Fischer IDP that we'll be using in the future. So the test environment is up, and the CASE and Fischer engineers are now preparing to work with that test environment to get that all set up. Ed, what will be some of the next steps that they'll be doing on the service provider environment?
Well, as you mentioned, we're going to start installing things on the test server and test it, and then once those have been validated, we will start migrating off of our new server to the Fischer server.
And at that point, the production operations for those third-party service providers will be handled by Fischer. Is that right?
That's correct.
Great. And then the other project portion or deliverable that we're working on is the actual provisioning of the internal systems. Let's describe for the audience a little bit, Ed, what we mean by provisioning.
Well, that's where we take information from various places around the university, like HR will tell us who's working here, and registrar tells us who the students are. The various schools have their own lists of who's working for them, and then we combine that all together, put it into our system, and come up with lists of who's who, and give them IDs and roles within the university.
And so, as we look to see the progress we've been making in that provisioning arena, one of the items of progress we've made this time over the last month is the engineers are now working directly with the engineers from Fischer themselves. They're working on getting the primary design finalized and to make sure that they've got all the requirements gathered, and finally targeting the design decisions that are still outstanding that need to be completed. And then the next steps will be to complete the design and then get the test environment up and running. Yep. So once that test environment's up and running, what are the things that remain then for the rest of the project, Ed?
Well, then we just validate that the tests all work successfully, that the product does what it needs to do, and then we begin the process of migrating off of our current system and onto the new one.
Well, sounds like things are moving forward well. We're getting close to the testing, and we'll soon be looking forward to when we migrate some things to production. Yeah. With that, I think that pretty much updates the status of things this month. Yeah. John, do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you, JB. Thank you, Ed. There's one question from the audience. Can the identity information include preferred names, or does that just go through systems like HCM or SIS?
It does. There are provisions for having preferred names. The process for updating that depends on your role in the university. You can update it through HCM and SIS. If you're not staff or student, you can update it in other ways as well. But yes, there is provisions for having a preferred name.